හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday, the 19th of March 2024. Cope crisis. More members resigned from the Parliamentary Oversight Committee on State-Owned Enterprises. Elect the President. President Ranil Wickremesinghe tells Cabinet to prepare for the presidential election first, despite parliamentary election chatter. Customs logjam. Fifth day of customs strike as talks between the Finance Ministry and department officials stall. Speaker troubles. Parliament heats up as the no-confidence motion against the Speaker taken for debate.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Indivari Amuata and Mahesh Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome to First at 9. This, I think it's Wednesday night, isn't it? This Wednesday night. No, absolutely. I'm sorry. It's Tuesday night. It is Tuesday night.
I think we're just elated about TV Derana winning a host of awards at the just happening Slim Nielsen Awards, solidifying and reiterating the people's choice for not just the channel, but also I would say, you know, one of our senior and key personalities of the channel, Chatra Alvis, and also a number of other programs and events have been judged by the people at the Slim Nielsen Award. We'll bring that story later on.
So, once again, a warm welcome and lots of stories to bring to you tonight as well. We're talking about a no-confidence motion that is being tabled in Parliament right now. It is being taken up. What exactly will happen? Well, you can find out as we move on with the bulletin.
And a slew of resignations again in terms of compliance with the COPE committee, the committee, Parliamentary Oversight Committee overseeing the Committee on Public Enterprises.
All around the world, well, the US presidential elections are also heating up now. It's no longer about Haley or any other candidate. It's basically Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Exchanging jabs at each other. Donald Trump says Joe Biden is doing a bad job. Everybody else is scared of the fact that he might come back to the White House.
It's interesting how Donald Trump made a comeback and how all the events were placed in such a way that they were coordinated in such a way that Donald Trump is in the limelight. again.
Indeed, it's going to be a very interesting election there as well and over here as well. Let's see how things turn out. So let's begin our bulletin tonight. Now, the no-confidence motion against the Speaker of Parliament, Mahinda Yapa Abewardana, by the opposition was debated in Parliament today.
The legislative revolt takes place after two controversial events that transpired recently. The appointment process of the current Inspector General of Police, Deshabandhu Tenakone, and the ratification of the highly controversial online safety bill.
Now, amidst allegations of procedural appropriate and collusion on account of dynamic political allegiance, the integrity of the Speaker has been called into question and will be a hotly debated topic over the next few days.
The no-confidence motion filed against Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapa Abewardana by the opposition was debated in Parliament today.
Even after his appointment to the post, the Speaker of Parliament was unable to get separate from his political affiliations. He is still a chairman of his political coordination committee in Waligama. When he sits on the chair and makes decisions in a setting where he has obvious political affiliations, it is clear that there is political involvement.
This is the first time that a determination of the
Supreme Court in regard to a bill has been blatantly violated by Parliament, unfortunately. And that is primarily the reason why this no confidence motion on the Speaker has been presented. When the matter came up before the Supreme Court, the Attorney General came and presented a series of amendments running into 18 pages. It took about 3 hours for him to list his so-called amendments. Now, if that is the case, why did not the Attorney General do that prior to the bill being gazetted? He did not do that. In a determination that runs into 62 pages, the court clearly laid down what can be done and what cannot be done. Very specifically said 34 out of the 56 clauses, the court said, is inconsistent with the Constitution, cannot be passed into law by simple majority. If those are to be passed, it must have a special majority, that is 2/3 the number of members of Parliament, including those not present. 150 votes had to be obtained if that was to become law. So if the Supreme Court says this clause cannot be passed without a special majority, Article 79 says the Speaker can endorse it only if, and unfortunately our Speaker does not seem to know what is meant by only if. Only if it is passed by special majority can he endorse that bill as having been duly passed. 13 amendments prescribed by the Supreme Court were not there in the list of amendments that the government was moving. Several provisions of the Constitution prohibit the Speaker from endorsing that bill because it was never duly passed by Parliament. So we have an illiterate Speaker and we have a bunch of illiterate members in the government side who will vote against this motion 2 days later.
In the first place, I couldn't believe that whether he was making this speech knowing that he is making the speech in the parliament or a Pradeshiya Sabha, Jaffna, Pothuillo, somewhere. Honorable Sumandiram went and argued in the determination matter in the Supreme Court. Now he is so frustrated. The frustration was displayed throughout his speech, and most of the times you are frustrated. Can you remember when the determination was given in the 21st Amendment to the Constitution, while sitting on the same seat, didn't you tell that you must send the Supreme Court home? තමුන්ගේ වාසියටයි කියලා හිතන නඩු තීන්දුවක් දුන්නාම දැන් ඇවිල්ලා කියනවා ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේ තීන්දුව වලින් පිට යන්න බෑ. You should not violate the determination made by the Supreme Court. What is this double standard?
There is no contradiction between the position I took then and now. It is not on whether the Supreme Court is right or wrong. Even when the Supreme Court is wrong, we have to comply with that. But I have the right to say that they were wrong. Even in this case, I just said that they were wrong in rejecting my petition to interfere in this matter. My position has not been contradictory.
Online safety bill එක. එම පනත් කෙටුම්පතේ 13 වෙනි වගන්තිය
The Supreme Court determined that Section 13 of the Online Safety Bill is inconsistent with Article 12(1) of the Constitution and therefore cannot be passed with a simple majority. However, in the Act, the relevant section has been amended, then the first statement made by the opposition is wrong. How are you going to say that Section 20 of the Act is not amended? It has been removed. Why are you acting this irresponsibly? A proposal was forwarded to the Constitutional Council to appoint an IGP. In such a situation, Council members should take a firm decisions. 4 votes were made in favour of and 2 against the appointment. However, 2 members abstained from voting. No one can say that they are abstaining.
මේ සභාවේදී 4 දෙනෙක් පක්ෂ වෙනවා, දෙන්නෙක් විරුද්ධ වෙනවා, තව දෙන්නෙක් කියනවා අපි සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි abstain වෙනවා. වැළකී සිටිනවා. කියන්න බෑ එක්කෙනෙකුටවත් I abstain. We have not given that power to you by this constitution. What has been given to you is either you accept or reject. That is the law.
Honorable
Or otherwise resign.
Now, is there a provision or isn't there a provision for these people to abstain?
Honorable Minister.
Even in the Supreme Court, you can go through the rules and you can go through the Constitution. It doesn't specify anywhere that you cannot abstain. But the nature of that obligation, that office is that you cannot. In the event that we'll have to make amendments, in so many other laws. Not that we can't do it, we can do it. But why should we complicate it? For what purpose? We appointed them to the Constitutional Council to take a decision. The powers of the President is curtailed. It was removed from him and given to the Constitutional Council.
අපි මෙතුමට විරුද්ධව මේ විශ්වාස භංග යෝජනයට පක්ෂව ඡන්දය දෙනවා.
We will vote in favour of this no confidence motion. If we are to continue calling this parliament supreme, then the speaker has to resign from his position.
At the government parliamentarians meeting, I mentioned that the president is more upstanding than deserved. There is no advantage in him amending the constitution. If he did not amend the constitution, all of you would be unable to submit a no confidence motion. He could have appointed both the IGP and the Triforce commanders arbitrarily with a single signature.
New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
The Cabinet of Ministers have approved a proposal to draft an amendment to the Constitution to elect 160 out of the 225 members of Parliament on the first-past-the-post system.
Now, the balance 65 parliamentary seats will be chosen through a proportional representation system from the national or provincial level.
Meanwhile, in another decision, the Cabinet has given permission to award procurement to all eligible Indian establishment to import approximately 42 million eggs to address the requirements of the incoming festive season.
With that, here are some other Cabinet decisions taken this week.
Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to adhere to the legal obligation of the national obligations related to the Kigali Amendment of the Montreal Alliance to phase down hydrofluorocarbon, which is a type of greenhouse gas. Accordingly, measures will be taken to limit the import and consumption of pure hydrofluorocarbon and products containing hydrofluorocarbon to Sri Lanka on a phase-by-phase basis. An annual import quota will be also implemented to prevent any adverse effect on hydrofluorocarbon consuming sectors such as agriculture, fishing, health, tourism, transport, industry, housing and construction. Cabinet has approved the proposal to advise the legal draftsman to draft the necessary laws to revise the current electoral system in order to meet the objectives of the Election Expense Regulation Act No. 3 of 2023 in order to ensure a fully democratic election. Prior to the decision, a cabinet subcommittee was appointed to query the views of all party leaders and other relevant parties represented in the parliament. In the committee, agreement of the majority has been received for suggestions to elect 160 members of parliament directly from the voters of their respective constituencies and the remaining 65 members to be elected at the national or provincial level according to a proportional voting system. The legal draftsman will be advised to take the recommendations by the committee when preparing the laws. Approval of the Cabinet of Ministers was granted at the meetings held in October of 2021 and July of 2023 for amendments to the Code of Civil Procedure by including the necessary provisions to improve the procedure for the issuance and service of summons related to civil proceedings. This is to take place by including the methods of delivery of summons through a courier service and email as normal services, as well as some other amendments to suit the current needs. As such, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the publishing of the bill in the Government Gazette and for it to be submitted to the Parliament for approval. In another decision, the Cabinet of Ministers gave the green light to establish an Interministerial Tourism Committee chaired by the Secretary to the President with representatives from relevant governing agencies. The new committee is expected to maintain efficient coordination and cooperation among the relevant agencies to achieve the desired targets of the industry. Cabinet also gave approval to award the relevant procurement, per the recommendation of the Standing Procurement Committee, to an eligible Indian establishment to import approximately 42 million eggs targeting the incoming festive season's requirements. Cabinet earlier approved the import of eggs to maintain market prices in December of last year, and so far around 18 million eggs have been imported to date.
Now, employees of the Sri Lanka Customs decided to continue their strike Work to Rule campaign after discussions with the State Minister of Finance, Ranjit Siamalapatia, this afternoon ended in a stalemate.
The trade union strike, which was launched following the Treasury's decision to bring the reward fund under the purview of the Ministry of Finance, continued to hamper the operations of customs clearance procedure today, leaving many businesses frustrated.
Now, this translated to nearly 4,500 containers being queued up at the Colombo port.
Customs trade unions have warned that a possible shortage of certain goods may arise during the New Year season if the trade union strike continues.
The trade union strike, launched by the employees of Sri Lanka Customs on Friday, continued today for a fifth day. The strike was launched following the decision of the Treasury to bring the Customs Officers' Reward Fund under the purview of the Ministry of Finance. This resulted in customs officials resorting to a strict work-to-rule campaign today, where they proceeded to execute their duties by doing no more than the minimum required by their contract, reporting to work at 9 a.m. and ending at 4:45 p.m. This work-to-rule campaign also boycotts the extra working hours which stand to hinder the operations of the customs clearance procedure at the port premises. Sri Lanka Customs own 4 container terminals in the Colombo port premises, namely SAGT, CICT, JCT and ECT. Usually on weekdays, nearly 2,000 containers of all types are cleared from the terminals. However, at present, containers containing essential food items, perishable food items and medicines are being cleared. Accordingly, between 1,000 and 1,500 other containers per day are queued up at the Colombo port and cannot be cleared due to the trade union strike. Commenting further in this regard, the Customs Officers Union added that the tax revenue of 3 to 4 billion rupees collected by the government from Sri Lanka Customs have also significantly reduced owing to the strike.
A shortage of essential goods may not arise as Sri Lanka Customs releases essential goods including food items and medicines to the general public. However, a shortage of other consumer goods, building materials and other goods will arise. There will also be heavy congestion at the Colombo port premises due to the trade union strike.
So far, at least 4,500 containers have reportedly been held up at the Colombo port as a result of the ongoing strike.
Usually, a late fee is charged when a container is delayed. Do we have to pay these late fees? If Sri Lanka Customs charge these late fees from us, then we have to add that particular amount to the goods manufactured by us. This leads to the increase in the prices of the goods manufactured by us. Subsequently, during this festive season, consumers will have to purchase these goods at a higher price along with the addition of the late fees. We are unable to pay these additional late fees and the customs should make arrangements to pay this.
With this being the backdrop, a discussion was held this afternoon between the employees of Sri Lanka Customs and State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya at the Ministry of Finance. However, the customs employees decided to continue their work-to-rule campaign as the discussions with the respective authorities ended on a negative note.
During the discussion, it was revealed that the Finance Ministry had an alternate proposal regarding this matter. Both parties have not reached a final agreement so far. Therefore, we will continue with this trade union strike till we see a concurrence.
A total of 7 members of the Committee on Public Enterprises have resigned within a span of 2 days over concerns of the integrity of the panel, claiming that they refuse to sit with corrupt ruling politicians. Following the resignation of opposition legislator Iran Vikramaratne yesterday, 6 other parliamentary members tendered their resignations today, with more slated to submit their resignations in the subsequent days. Former committee chairman SLPP MP Professor Ranjit Bandara was initially entangled in controversy with allegations of sexual misconduct and procedural impropriety. He tendered his resignation and Parliament was prorogued shortly after. When Parliament resumed, SLPP MP Rohitha Abegunawardena was named chairman of the committee, with Professor Bandara being retained as a member. Abegunawardena has himself been entangled in controversy, which in turn has paved the way for this mass exodus.
Sammagi Jana Balawegaya Member of Parliament Eran Vikramaratne announced his resignation from the Parliament's Committee on Public Enterprises yesterday. Issuing a statement, he said that by appointing a member of the government as its chairman, the committee fails to meet its objectives in keeping a check on the executive arm of the government. He lamented that 45 years since its establishment, COPE today has come to be a redundant committee with mismanagement and corruption largely going unchecked due to limitations in statutory standing orders. Meanwhile, today parliamentary members Dayasiri Jayasekara, Professor Charita Herath, S.M. Marika, Shanakian Rasamanikam, Hesha Vitanage and Gamini Valeboda also tendered their resignations today.
Today I resigned from the COPE committee. New chairman, there are so many issues with him. It is not a personal issue with him, but his conduct as a member of parliament, and there are some cases against him. The cases are still going on. There is a bribery case. I think bribery has withdrawn the case because of some technical issues. I think till this kind of a case is over, his dignity is still a question. So that is why we came out of the committee and resigned, because we are not willing to work with him as a chairman.
The reason that I have provided for my resignation is the credibility of the chairman himself. It was only 2 weeks ago when Parliament convened that the same person who is now the chair of the committee tried to assault me at the Prime Minister's office within the parliamentary complex for voicing out some of my concerns regarding a motion that the chairman had presented as a member of parliament. Current chairman, who was at that time not chairman, was rewarded with the position of chairman for trying to assault me, is what I believe. If I continue to be in the Committee of Public Enterprise with somebody of the caliber of Rohita Begunawardena, even my life would be under threat.
I have decided and I have sent my resignation to the Speaker of the Parliament on my membership of the COP committee. I think that committee is aimed to look at the public enterprises and the governance side of that sector. But now the current government and the members of the government who are appointed to that committee are deciding that committee should work in a very different manner. But I think it is not up to the expectation of that committee. So I think it is not useful to be there.
Today, 5 or 6 persons representing the opposition side handed over our resignation letters to the Honorable Speaker. 2-3 people will give their resignation letters tomorrow early in the morning. Then I think if government think to continue the COP committee without opposition's participation, they can continue. If not, they have to resign the chairman.
Now, a total of 20 special police teams were deployed across the island to combat the surge in organised crime activity in the western and southern provinces. This special police operation will be carried out under the directives of the recently appointed Inspector General of Police, Deshabandhu Tendakon, and Commander of the Special Task Force, Varuna Jayasundara.
In the recent past, an alarming spike in organised crime activity and murders in the western and southern provinces of the country have been reported. In a bid to control this, a total of 20 special police teams were deployed across the island to crack down on the underworld activity in conjunction with the ongoing Yuktiya Special Police Operation, which is targeting the eradication of the use of narcotic substances. This special police team, comprising 9 personnel, including 1 crimes OIC, 4 intelligence officers and 2 special task force personnel, are marshalled under the direct supervision of the Inspector General of Police, Deshabandhu Tendakon, and the Commander of the Special Task Force, Varuna Jayasundara. 4 teams of the total 20 police teams were dispatched to the Western Province North Crime Division, the Western Province South Crime Division, the Kaluthara Crime Division, the Colombo Crime Division and the Goa Crime Division.
Sri Lanka Police, together with the Special Task Force, today commenced a special operation to apprehend 20 identified criminal gangs. This special operation aims to abolish the threat posed on the lives of the people by the underworld activities carried out by crime gangs. If this move fails to combat this surge in organised crime by the end of March, we will increase the number of officers deployed over the next few months. We will continue this operation until both drug and underworld activities are completely eliminated from the country.
The official team dispatch took place at 8:45 a.m. this morning with all the officials and officers of the 20 police teams in attendance.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe confirmed yesterday that the presidential election will be held prior to the parliamentary polls. The head of state conveyed this message to the special political cabinet which was appointed by him for elections during a meeting which was held yesterday prior to the main weekly cabinet meeting. Discussions were held on the formation of an alliance and its symbol in supporting the president at the upcoming presidential election. During the meeting, President Ranil Wickremesinghe requested that the political cabinet invite 2 parliamentarians of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party for the meeting. The president also instructed the cabinet to conclude the development activities initiated by the government at the earliest possible time in order to prepare for the presidential elections.
Well, 2 suspects along with illegal narcotics worth over 1 million rupees was apprehended in yet another drug raid conducted in Nugegoda. The 2 suspects are known associates of the notorious underworld figure known by the alias Dubai Avishka. Meanwhile, two vehicular accidents were reported, one from Kamburugoda and the other on the Southern Expressway, with both of them being the result of drivers falling asleep at the wheel. With that, here's a look at more news from across the island in brief.
During a raid conducted by the Nugegoda Police Anti-Vice Unit, two individuals in possession of over 1 million rupees worth of crystal methamphetamine were taken into police custody. Reportedly, the two suspects are known associates of the notorious underworld figure known by the alias Dubai Avishka. Upon further investigation, the two suspects were found to be in possession of 90,000 rupees worth of cash obtained through the sale of drug. In the meantime, a car travelling on the Kasbah-Bandaragam road crashed into a house in the Kamburugoda area, severely damaging both the vehicle and the building. The accident was reportedly caused due to the driver falling asleep at the wheel. Another similar incident occurred on the Southern Expressway when a van collided with a container carrier between Kurunduga-Hatakma and Valipanna. The crash resulted in the death of the 21-year-old passenger of the van. According to the police, this collision was also caused by the van's driver falling asleep at the wheel. In other local news, customs officials at the Bandaranayake International Airport apprehended two individuals attempting to smuggle 4 kilograms of undeclared gold from Dubai. The value of the stock of seized gold is estimated to be around 1 million rupees.
Welcome back to the news. The government has decided to establish the Sapukaskanda fuel refinery as a separate state enterprise to the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. The decision was taken to allow local and foreign capital to be attracted in order to modernize and extend its existence by another 25 years. The Sapukaskanda fuel refinery, which is the only oil refinery in Sri Lanka, was established in 1969, and approximately 25% of the domestic demand for refined petroleum products is supplied by the refinery. Concurrently, earlier this year, bids were called for the implementation of the rooftop solar power generation project in religious spaces, subject to an allocation of $17 million under the loan facility of $1 billion by the State Bank of India. After evaluating 6 bids that were received earlier, a technical evaluation committee and a cabinet procurement committee decided to award the contract to India's Premier Energies Limited. Both decisions have also been approved by the Cabinet of Ministers at its meeting last evening.
Well, Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, confirms that the Indian government has agreed to provide a grant of $61.5 million to fully develop the port of Kankasanture. In a statement, the Ministry of Ports said that the message was conveyed during a meeting between Ambassador Jha and Ports and Aviation Minister Nimal Siripala de Silva. As part of the project, a new breakwater will be constructed and the port will be dredged to a depth of around 30 meters to accommodate deep draft vessels. Now, during the discussion, the Indian High Commissioner expressed India's commitment to enhancing regional cooperation between the two nations and pledged its fullest assistance in attracting more Indian tourists to Sri Lanka. Further, Minister of Ports and Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva stated that a new terminal costing 600 million rupees will be constructed at the Kankasanture port to cater to the convenience of Indian tourists.
Taking into the Colombo Stock Exchange, the equity market turnover crossed the 4 billion rupee mark as LOLC Finance recorded a stake change of 500 million shares at 58 rupees, but it still did not prevent the market from closing in negative territory. Meanwhile, the all-share index extended its losses from the previous session and settled 0.39% lower at 11,276.31. John Hughes Holdings PLC and LOLC Holdings were the top losers on the index, falling 1% and 2% respectively. Mixed interest was observed in Capital Alliance, Vatavalla Plantations and First Capital, whilst retail interest was noted in SMB Leasing, Non-Voting Browns Investment and Dialogue Asiata. Trading volume on the index rose to 558.2 million shares from 69.7 in the previous session. The S&P SL20 of more liquid stocks closed in negative territory, meanwhile falling 0.85% to 3,209.66. Foreign investors reverted back to being net sellers, offloading stocks worth 2.92 billion rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 3.95 billion rupees.
Well, oil prices were largely steady today, remaining close to their near 4-month high from the previous session. Brent crude futures for May were down 15 cents and settled at $86.76 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate May contract slipped by 9 cents to settle at $82.07 a barrel. Now, prices were curtailed by Russia's announcement of its intention to increase oil exports in March by almost 200,000 barrels per day from the planned output of 2.15 million barrels per day. Now, prices were also weighed down by the uncertainty about how the U.S. interest rates would pan out ahead of this week's Federal Reserve policy meeting.
Well, that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9 on Other Derana 24, your premier English news service. And I am Indivari Amwata.
I'm Mahesh Johnny. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.